What's up, DBS fans, horror fans, and anyone trying to make a movie? We're back with the DBS legend, Chris Hewitt. You may know him as the intro guy in Shadows of Bigfoot, one of the three Army Rangers who are on that elusive hunt to find Bigfoot. And, I can't thank him enough because Shadows of Bigfoot continues to do well till this day. It seems to have found a cult following and continues to grow in numbers. I think we're well in the millions of views. And obviously I owe Chris a great amount of gratitude because not only was the intro our best intro, he came up with a lot of it. He came up with the tense scene. He came up with the scene where he escapes and gets smacked by Bigfoot, or I guess grabbed by Bigfoot. In our movie. So he's back to talk a little bit, not only about Bigfoot, but his own project, Dr. Figment, which is his first step into filmmaking, actually making and producing an actual short film. And we're going to kind of go into that. We're going to talk to him a little bit about, his filmmaking adventure and what he learned in the process to try and help you guys if you are trying to make a horror movie, a horror short. So you guys should check out his short. I'll link it here in the show notes. But Chris, thank you again for joining us. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the podcast today, Brennan. Really excited to be here.
So let's start off with Shadows of Bigfoot. You got the casting call. We had you audition. What was it like being on set with DBS for the first time?
Well, flying down there, getting there, waiting for Dan to get there because his plane got delayed for Dan. And then your brother came by, picked us up, drove us to the Airbnb. And I remember getting there, seeing you sitting in your truck in the driveway, and Dylan Devane, fantastic Dylan, met us in the driveway and kind of brought us in, showed us around. And it was just amazing to meet all these people that I made friends with from the Discord, getting to meet you, your brother, Dylan, Dylan, especially seeing him in all the previous DBS films, and then actually getting to meet him in person, seeing all the social media that you post behind the scenes, all the great behind the scenes, and getting to meet you was really great. And then getting to see the Bigfoot suit laid out in the grotto in back, and then your brother came out with the mask. But being on set, it was a blur. It flew by. It went by quickly, too fast, but it was a pretty amazing experience. It's something that's still with me, and I still try to get back to that. Look forward to doing that one day again, hopefully.
Of course, you're always welcome back. And one of the reasons you're welcome back is because of your job of pre-production. I always say here at DBS, pre-production is the most valuable asset you have because there is no time pressure. You have as much time as you need to basically get this movie to where it needs to go. Most of our scripts are blank slates. Basically, there's enough in there to see what we're trying to do with the movie. There's enough in there to pitch distribution. But the characters, are kind of basic. They're kind of generic. And I really lean on the actors to kind of help me fill those in. And for the Bigfoot movie, we needed a really good intro. Your intro is the most important part of your horror movie because, for our demographics, they're watching Amazon, they're watching Tubi, they're watching now YouTube, and they're kind of just scrolling through, and they will give our movie, 3 to 4 minutes. And they'll give it a chance. And if we don't hook them right away, then, they're going to turn that movie off. We're not going to get that ad revenue. So I knew for Bigfoot, we needed a banger of an intro. And, Chris, honestly, all three hunters were fantastic with developing those characters. So can you go into a little bit of detail on how you developed those characters in Bigfoot, and how you kind of created their backstory to kind of give them a little more life than, the original stuff that I kind of gave you?
Well, the idea really came from Dan and Hayden, Sean Wilson Hayden. And we kind of met up together when we were starting to do the pre-production. You gave us our homework assignment of watching different horror movies, Lost Coast Tapes and Backcountry, Troll. It was fun. It wasn't homework. We got to watch movies and talk about the movies and try to figure out what you wanted to do. Like you said, that DBS on-set language that we all speak, so we understand what you're looking for. But it was really Dan and Hayden. We all met up. We all started talking about it. They came up with the idea where they were veterans. They were friends that served together. And I was kind of the guy that Sean brought in to document it, to film it. And I was a skeptic. The idea was originally I was going to be the skeptic coming in to try to debunk and disprove Dan's obsession, Pete's, obsession with finding Bigfoot, getting his revenge on Bigfoot was the idea. And we just ran with it. We just, three guys in the woods going looking for Bigfoot. I was there against my will, didn't want to be there. And I tried to play it up to where in that tent scene, but the backstory was mostly them. And we kind of would meet on the Discord and talk about it, just have fun about it, just discuss different ideas. And they mainly came up with that idea. But then the idea was that I would be coming in as a skeptic, a filmmaker, documentarian, to disprove everything that was happening, that everything that Dan's character, Pete, believed was total BS. And it was fun. We just had fun with it. So that's how that came to be.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I liked working with them so much because every time I would, talk to them on the Discord, or we would just have a Zoom meeting, basically they would just give me a lot of options. There's a lot of dialogue options in there and allow me to pick and choose, but it takes a lot of weight off my shoulders because, they're actively meeting, they're trying to work out dialogue, they're trying to work out plots. And, it brings me up to the next thing is that I'm very honest with actors on stuff that I think is going to work and stuff that I need help with. When we had him, your character in the tent, I had that locked down. I think that was written, but the afterwards, what happened afterwards, because Hayden gets ripped out, which is really, really cool. What happened afterwards was something that you kind of came up with. So talk to me a little bit about how you kind of had that inspiration, especially with the glasses, which we didn't get to use, but were really kind of cool.
Well, I was thinking, how could I die? That was the fun part about being in a horror movie, is trying to figure out how we could die and just interesting ways to scare the audience. That's the fun part, coming up and adjusting things that we were going to say in the dialogue with Dan and myself and Hayden. That was fun. But then being there and trying to figure out, okay, what's a good way? So during the pre-production, kind of coming up with the idea of, I'm running through the woods. I trip like Velma in Scooby-Doo and drop my glasses. And the monster catches me. But unlike Scooby-Doo, it, murders me and tears me apart, as Bigfoot does. But that was kind of the idea. That was kind of the inspiration, Scooby-Doo idea for, I have a Velma moment in the woods and trip and fall and drop the camera and lose my flashlight. The flashlight won't stay on. Come on, turn on. And then, Bigfoot's right behind me. So that was kind of the idea and inspiration for that sequence that I wanted to do.
And yeah, he pitched that and it worked out. And I think that really, it worked really well in that movie because number one, it killed everybody. But number two, it gave the audience, because it's a Bigfoot movie, they want to see Bigfoot. But obviously, we ran into two really big problems with this movie is, one, our Bigfoot, because it is found footage, I can't really cheat height or anything like that. So our Bigfoot was Dylan, and Dylan's like 5'10" on a good day. So, you have a baby Bigfoot. And then number two, it is a Bigfoot movie. You don't want to show too much of the creature. But the way that Chris had pitched it was genius because it allows us to just flash. The Bigfoot just kind of came at the screen. We've done it in Murder House and a couple other movies, but it happens so quick that you just see the outline of the Bigfoot, and then you cut to the title sequence. And I thought it worked really, really well. I thought that whole intro was really good. I think you guys did a really good job. So talk to me what, my favorite part of that was working with you on the Blair Witch sequence, which was you just basically sitting in the tent, hearing Bigfoot. And we took a ton of takes of this one, because I needed to make sure, we got it. And number two, I think Hayden was getting the prosthetics done on his back at that time. So talk to me a little bit through your Blair Witch moment, because that is a horror trope, but it has to be a lot of fun to play with.
It's a trope, but it's like warm chicken soup to the horror fan. We love our tropes. We absolutely love our tropes. They're comfortable blankets for us. And me panicking, freaking out in the tent, reacting to the tent getting rattled and banged and scratched on. That's a real emotion because of how hot it was in that tent. And the amount of F-bombs I said in that tent. But it is a trope, but it's a fun trope. It's supposed to be in a horror movie, the flash of the image of the creature, you get a glimpse to wet your whistle, to want more. And that's what that setup is hopefully was for people that watched it, is get them ramped up, excited. Okay, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And then Hayden comes in the tent. But that shaking on, I kept thinking, am I holding on to those grips on the camera too hard and pulling you over? I'm a big guy, and I felt bad about like holding on too tight to those grips to get really close to the camera. But it was fun. It was fun, but it was hot. It was very hot in that tent.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. It was so worth it to see the final product. But that sequence of shaking and nervous, begging for, just get me out of here. There's the line, right? I shouldn't even be here. So I shouldn't be here right now. Why am I here? I let them convince me to come there into those woods.
Yeah, and just for you viewers who don't know about Shadows of Bigfoot, this was filmed in, I believe, June, in Florida, and it had been raining a lot in the area. So it was almost like a sauna, like especially at night. It was just like the moisture was just thick in these woods, and it was so hot. That was one of the hardest shoots we've ever had, just with like I was in cut off t-shirts and everyone was just on shorts, and I was just drenched the entire time, and I have to carry that backpack and it just stuck to me, and it just was like it was just gross. I just wanted nothing more than a shower to get out of there. But one thing I want to talk to you a little bit about was the direction that I kind of gave you when you were doing that scene, because it allowed for a lot of improv. I don't remember what I was telling you. At this point, it was a fever dream, or my brain just deleted it. Because we needed to get the Blair Witch. We needed a lot of footage, and you had room for improvisation. Do you remember what direction I was giving you when you were holding the camera at that time?
Oh, mostly I was just shaking, hyperventilating. You were telling me to hyperventilate, to shake, to look panicked, to really look panicked, to elicit that feeling from the audience, to get them to panic, and it was really, you were giving me, I shouldn't be here. What am I doing here? Hyperventilate, freak out, panic. That's what we were doing that whole time, was in that tent, sweating to death. Real look, that look on my face is a real look on my face of get me the hell out of this tent. But also at the same time, having the time of my life at 43 years old, getting to be in a horror movie and being a horror movie my entire life, and finally getting to be in one was amazing. A dream come true. But it was hot.
Yeah, and just for you guys, well, a tip to filmmakers is to get a little bit panicked. I do have the actors speed up their breathing. Breathing, if you speed up their breathing, it'll move up your voice a little bit, so you sound a little bit more panicked. And it picks up really well in the lav mics, and it just sounds much more amped up. For a lot of our movies, before the actors have to do an intense scene, I'll have them do jumping jacks, or just kind of move around a little bit, because you can tell that stuff. Just visually, if you're out of breath a little bit, you can tell through the vocal tension in there, and it is a little bit of a trick that I've kind of discovered. If I need to ramp them up, instead of being like, hey, act more afraid or excited or something like that, you just have them move around a little bit more or hyperventilate before the take happens. Now, there's a disclaimer on that, because if you have them do it too much, they will pass out. Like, they get lightheaded. So just always be in communication with them and don't do it too much. But yeah, me and Chris were in this tent together, and it was a small ass tent, and it was hot. It was probably like a sauna inside of a sauna. And we were in there for a while. I remember that tent scene took a long time, and then we had to get Hayden in there, and the sun was coming up, and for that shot, I needed to make sure I got it, so I just kept doing it over and over and over. And poor Hayden had to jump in and then get pulled out, jump in and get pulled out. But I think we got it.
That.
Go ahead.
Dylan and your brother yanking him out of the tent. And one of the times they pulled him out of the tent, he did a barrel roll and landed on his back because they yanked him so hard. And he kept doing it. He kept going back for more.
I mean, all three of you guys were absolutely fantastic to work with, and it was a tough shoot. It wasn't that was a hard thing. The intros are always hard. I was under a lot of stress with that one because I think it had been raining at that point, and our schedule was just really messed up. But you guys came in, and I mean, I think you flew down for one day and then did the thing, and were out the next day.
We came in that day, waited in the airport until Dan and everyone got there, jumped in the car with your brother, Kellen, and drove out to the Airbnb. And then we got ready and went out to the woods, and we were out there until sunrise. Well, we went back to the Airbnb for Dan, for Tegan to do the special effects makeup on Dan, but we were there until, and then the tent. That tent got covered with a tarp to make it look like nighttime, but the sun was rising. That's how long we were out there. And then that morning, maybe a little before noon, we went out back to the airport and flew home. We were there. It was quick, but it was intense and fast paced, but it was magical. It was absolutely magical and fun. I know it's a lot of work. It's so much work that goes into that. But it was fun from my perspective. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean that's usually how when I finish a movie, it's a huge weight off my shoulders because it is you just don't until you do it, you don't understand how difficult it is to make these movies and how much work and preparation and stress and everything kind of goes into it, and you have to create this thing in a limited amount of time. And when you have all these people, I have the actors, I have a production staff looking at me, you have to answer, literally I wake up and I have to answer probably hundreds and thousands of questions each day, and some of them I know the answer to and some of them I don't. I have to kind of figure it out on the fly. So it's like once you're done with it, you feel nice and relaxed and you feel accomplished because you did something that 0.00001% of people ever get to do, which is to make something and upload it. And then it kind of kicks in, all right, what's next? So for you, Chris, when did that itch start to get, start to come up? When did you have to scratch that itch to do something else creative?
When I got to the airport in Tampa, before I left, I'm not kidding, before I left to go home, because the idea was that all of us talked about doing travel vlogs on the way down, and I shot something, put it up on YouTube. But I even talked about it in that on the way home and how excited I was, what an intense feeling it was. It's the behind the scenes, the putting together is a ton of work on a bigger production. I can't even imagine. I've only done it on a small, little, tiny indie production, and that was a lot of work to get it all the moving pieces together. So on that level, with all those people in those conditions to put it together, it is incredible. And I had to do it. I needed to do it again and at least try to do it myself and see if it was possible. And then the second I got home with no idea what I was doing, I attempted my very first screenplay, which, point of fact, is a sequel to Shadows of Bigfoot. With Dan Wheeler, Sean Wilson, and myself reprising our roles as Ed, Pete, and Jim. And we were raised from the dead by a voodoo witch doctor to hunt Bigfoot again.
Well, I mean, I will tell you, Bigfoot now is getting some more traction for a sequel. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about doing a mockumentary. We're still seeing how the mockumentaries do. But now it's coming around, and, I think it's just the lasting success of Shadows of Bigfoot. It does have like a cult following. It is, most of our movies, they'll peak up and then they kind of drop off really hard and they kind of like level out. And Bigfoot's like floor has been higher than, most of our other movies, which is really, really cool. And that just shows it's got like a little cult following. So, I mean, yeah, like I am always down. And I always thought that you guys had a really cool story, which was, like it could have been a spin-off, or this happens a lot where we're like, man, that's a really cool part of the script, but it's not, like, you can't make the movie this time, but I might do it down the road of, you know, the hunters where they shoot the mom Bigfoot, and then the other one comes back, and like it has like a redemption arc, because I never wanted Bigfoot to really be a villain. um or if he is the villain, he has a reason for that. And that whole story was just kind of fleshed out as we were doing it. Was kind of interesting. So I always thought that that would be cool to kind of like, spin off or try and play around with. But let's get to, you felt the itch and you wanted to make something, you started writing screenplays. Where does Dr. Figment come into the picture? Where was the first inception of this idea to kind of make this short?
So it came from when I got home, everything going on back home, back to reality, reality check. I'm not on a movie set anymore. I'm not in a horror movie anymore. And now I'm back to real life with real problems. And it started becoming from the idea of people that suffer from night terrors, these horrible, terrific, terrible dreams where they're frozen stiff, they can't move, but they're completely awake, haunted by demons and things from their past that just torment them. And going through everything I was going through back home with my dad and trying to take care of him, and just life got in the way. Life had problems like every life has problems, and trying to work through it. And my way to work through it, with that most recent experience with being in Shadows of Bigfoot, the opportunity to be one of the intro hunters and meet Dan Wheeler and Sean and everyone, Andrew and Tatum, and everyone was so, Dylan, everyone was so fantastic. But going through all that, that was my outlet. That was my therapy to deal with dealing with life, was come up with this idea of a character, myself. David is my middle name. And just working through what I was going through, but an exaggerated version of it, a horror movie version of reality. I don't suffer from night terrors myself, but people that do, it's very traumatic. And so this character, David, kind of came from my own experiences, my own things I was dealing with in my personal life. Write what you know. You hear it a million times, and it's true because it's real. So when you write the dialogue, it's real. It's not wooden and fake and forced. And so I came up with this idea for night terrors, the character David. Fast forward to moving from Michigan, where I'm from, to Santa Fe, New Mexico, new set of problems. And so the idea was to get myself out there and try to find a group of indie filmmakers here. And fortunately, here in Santa Fe, there's a ton of them. And they're pretty fantastic people. And one in particular, this group of people in particular here in Santa Fe Independent Film Club. And I just made myself go and wrote another version of a screenplay. And I was so focused on it being exactly how it should be and perfectly formatted, how a screenplay should be formatted. And that was holding me up. And just doubting myself. Who am I to think I can write a screenplay? I didn't go to film school. I didn't do all these things. I was in a horror movie and I played a character who says the F word a lot. But I just did it. I made myself take that first step. And a year later, after about a year of being at the film club, I wrote another version and another version and another version. And then came time to put it together and set a schedule and cast it, and all the things that go into production, even on an indie level, all the things that go into production, all the moving pieces. And so I decided to pull it back, use the character, create a new character, his therapist, Dr. Figment, and casted it and just went for it. And so in a week, I wrote Dr. Figment based on those characters and fine-tuned it and tweaked it and took advice from all of the film club guys and from Tyler Nunez, the lead actor who plays David in Dr. Figment, and Dusty McGowan, who plays Dr. Figment, and really listened to all the folks from film club and fine-tune.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got an earlier draft of the script, and I liked it. I always like the dream stuff. I think that's always, some of my favorite stuff because it's easy to film because it you just wake up from it. It's also super terrifying if you had nightmares before. And there's a lot of like cool stuff and themes you can kind of play around with. So I always thought that that was really cool, and it kind of reminded me of Channel Zero. And I've always been a pretty big Channel Zero fan. Just the way it just read, kind of like it, and I thought that was really really cool. And I think it was like I read the script, and then you were sending me this stuff, and then like you're like, here's the I filmed it, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy because I never really see anyone actually make things. I mean, I get pitched stuff all the time. I get scripts all the time. And my feedback is always, well, film it. You can do it. Oh, I don't have a camera. I don't have the gear. I don't have anything. You have an iPhone. You can shoot it with the iPhone. Or in Chris's case, he went to the local, film school to kind of get and work with people that are, looking to kind of do that kind of things. And there's within, I'm in Orlando, so we have a lot of film schools around here. But if I went to, any of those schools, I guarantee there's students that would probably work for free or, a lower discounted rate to just film something, get something on the resume. You have to put yourself out there and get there. So, Chris, let's go into that because I think that's kind of interesting. Talk to me a little bit about you going to the film club and how you kind of got in there and got convinced them to make, your film for you.
Well, two guys in particular that started the film club, they met in film school here in New Mexico, started this film club, and now every Sunday they meet at this local place here in town, Tiny's. And their names are Bronson Dunphy and Jeff Gonzalez. And they started this film club, local filmmakers, local indie filmmakers, people interested in writing and acting and stunts and special effects meet up and you kind of discuss your projects and ask people if they're interested to be in them or how they could help out. And they gave me I got my education in film from the film club and didn't go to film school to do it. And that's the thing is, you don't need all that equipment. It's nice to have. And if you can find a community of people that have that equipment, great. But just put yourself out there, try and just film. Just write something and film it. And keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. It's like you're an overnight success after 20 years of doing it. But that's the thing. And these guys taught me so many things, and I learned so many things on how to, pitch your idea, an elevator pitch, 30-second pitch on what your movie's about to get people interested to help you make it. And they introduced me to Tyler and Bronze and Dusty they came to Film Club. Bronson Dunphy, who is the cinematographer in the movie, has all this experience with lighting and setting up all the equipment and filming. An absolute magician with a camera. An incredible eye. Jeff Gonzalez with his experience in production and producing. And all the advice that they gave me and were willing to help me make it. And we made it I bought craft service stuff and they were willing to shoot it with me. And the idea initially was that it would take maybe 8-10 hours to shoot. And we filmed it in my grandma's bedroom and my aunt and uncle's across town. That's Dr. Figment's office. And they were willing to let me film it in there. And everyone was willing to do it. Mike Barella, who did the sound mixing, and Jeff and Bronson, who filmed it, and I directed. And the very first time I ever did it, but I did it. And that's the thing is you got to do it. Don't hesitate on it. Just make something and show it to your friends. Upload it to the internet. Who cares if you don't think it's good or bad? Because someone might see it and think it's the best thing they've ever seen. It might inspire them. But from that whole process of all that time I spent from leaving Florida to moving to here, to joining Film Club, to just putting my ideas out there, it took a long time. It's the end of 2025 and I left Florida in June of 2023.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. The amount of work that takes to make these things is just crazy. And it's like, it's just a process and it takes a while. I mean, Hollywood movies take a year to come out. And we've been working really hard at getting these movies. I think that's the biggest thing I spent this year, which is really revamping our post-production process so that we can get these out sooner. And I think we finally did it. If you guys check, by the time you're watching this, Echoes of Evil trailer has dropped. And from me getting the post-production timeline from Echoes of Evil, it took 90 days for me to basically get it to where it needs to go to give it to distribution. A lot of that is Jeff, our editor, has been a big help in that and piecing these together and get them to the point where I can just, manipulate it and, do the color and the audio and everything and get it uploaded. We've gotten much faster with that. If you watch our Alien short on there, we filmed that and we basically turned that around in a week. And that was just us messing around. But post-production takes a long time. So Chris, let's talk a little bit about the writing phase of Dr. Figment. You had the idea. You said you never really wrote a screenplay before. What were the hardest thing? What was the thing where you were stuck on the most, where you just can't quite figure it out, on your script?
How to end it? How do I end it but how do I begin it to where you initially get them hooked to want to watch it? Putting it together, the dialogue was natural because I put myself in that place. I understood it. It helped a lot that Dusty is an actual therapist in real life. So he had a really good insight on how therapy sessions should go. In Dr. Figment, he plays a very bad therapist who's not helpful at all. In real life, he's a wonderful therapist. Not my therapist, but a friend from film club. And their feedback, their insight on helping me make it feel natural coming from them, being open to those ideas like you were with us and Shadows of Bigfoot, open to us suggesting things and what we say and who we are and how we portray those characters. You have to have an openness and a willingness to trust the people around you who are helping you make that movie, especially the actors that are playing the roles that you created, and give them that freedom to, hey, this might work better. Open to those suggestions. And writing it, what was really tricky was, for me, wasn't so much the story. I knew the story cold. I knew the character cold. I knew what I wanted to do, and it's just expressing that to an audience till they understand what I'm trying to say with that short film. So writing it wasn't as difficult. What I kept getting tripped up on and what I kept letting slow me down was formatting, screenplay formatting. I want to tell a story, but it needs to be in a way that others who are trying to help you make it understand what you want. And that's the whole point of it in my experience. But I let it keep hanging me up and slowing me down and discouraging me from continuing. But I pushed past it. You just got to push past it and just write it and adjust things as needed. And then it came to the day of actually filming it, and it all went out the window. Not my dialogue, not the story, but how it's going to be put together. Because generally, usually, what happens most likely is it's going to take a while to do. It's going to take a while to set up and film it, cut it, but scene after scene, take after take, even on a smaller indie level, very tiny indie level, like what I did with Santa Fe Indie Film Club, take 8-10 hours. I did it in 5, and I'm stunned. Everyone was shocked because I was so clear and concise and to the point on what I wanted the beat to be, how I wanted it to flow, what I wanted them to express to each other and to the audience, what message I wanted to get across with these characters, and make it interesting enough to where people want to watch it and think about it after they're done watching.
Yeah, I think like my job as a director really just boils down to, try and take my vision, what's in my head, and give it to the actors and give it to the crew as quickly and as efficiently as I possibly can. And I thought you brought up a good point about working with the actors and giving them flexibility because they're seeing the characters through their eyes. You're seeing the whole production, you're seeing everything involved. Um, they only have to focus on that. And so their feedback is very important. I always lean on the actors for advice, like we talked about with Chris with Shadows of Bigfoot. But it's up to you as a director to pick and choose, what you want to use. But he also brought up a really good point of you have to make a decision and you have to stick to it. It could be the right decision, it could be the wrong decision, but you have to make a decision and stick to it. Seeing a lot of directors and working with a lot of people in film, the ones who really struggle and who get themselves into trouble are very indecisive people. And when you're indecisive, you're going to struggle because you're getting, wardrobe questions, camera questions, actor questions, all this stuff is coming to you. And if you start being like, well, I don't know, you're going to dilute your vision, but you're going to jeopardize the set because you're not answering things as quickly as possible. Like Chris just said, he's able to get it done quickly because he knew what he wanted. And, when I'm going through my final last breakdown of the script, when we have the script locked and I don't need to meet with actors anymore and it's just me and myself, I'm going word for word and making sure I know exactly how to shoot this. And I know exactly everything about this script that needs to be done. So that I'm envisioning a question that actors are going to ask. I'm envisioning a question that production's going to ask. And I have to have those answers. I have to have a clear picture of exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm not saying it's going to be the right or the wrong answer, but at least we have a direction. The train always has to be moving forward because you just don't have time to dilly-dally and figure things out. That's what pre-production is for. Once you get on that set, it is just decisions and going straight as quickly as you possibly can. If you don't know what you're doing, you just have to pick something to go and basically go in that direction and try and do that before you start shooting. Because once you're on set, it's all hell in a handbag at that point. Like it's going to be crazy. So let's talk to you a little bit about casting. I guess you just met these people. Did you hold auditions or did you just pick the guys that were in the film club that you thought would do it?
As far as Tyler Nunez, who plays David, the main character, and as Dusty McGowan, I met them both at Santa Fe Indie Film Club. Dusty was coming to meetings, hanging out, talking about things he'd worked on. But then I asked if Bronson in particular, Bronson Duffy, knew anyone, a trained professional theater actor who's been in other things. And he suggested Tyler Nunez. And I met him for coffee. And I pitched him the idea, gave him the script. We went over it and he liked the character and he loved the dialogue and loved the story and wanted to play David. And I was ecstatic because here's someone that not only was willing to meet up with me, willing to do it at a reasonable price, which was I'll feed you and anything you need to get out here, I'll do. Anything you need me to help you with, I'll help you get. And he was gracious enough. Everyone was gracious enough to be willing to do so. But as far as casting, I met up with Tyler. He said yes. I met up with Dusty. He said yes. And was a actual therapist that could give me his insight into what a therapist is supposed to be like and how they're supposed to act and dress and everything. But they said yes, and I was grateful. And they liked the characters in the stories, and they were willing to do it. And I met up with, talking about pre-production, Tyler and I met up many times. Dusty and Tyler met up many times. I suggested the advice that I got from you before we even got down to Florida for Shadows of Bigfoot. I took that to heart so much to where I made sure I ran it, all the pre-production, exactly how you did with us, with Dan, Hayden, and myself, to where I did the exact same thing when I met up with Tyler and with Dusty and said, you guys need to make time to meet up and go through this screenplay, go through the dialogue, and really have a good back and forth, a really good chemistry on set, in those scenes where I believe, if I believe it, and I wrote it, and I believe you are these actual characters, Dr. Figment and David, the audience will believe it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, pre-production is definitely like our bread and butter. Our biggest secret is pre-production, and it works. I see the more we do in pre-production, the more, the better the product is, and I continue to do more and more pre-production. And I always advise that. I think like in our earlier movies, we didn't do enough pre-production. I think it shows. So you go watch our older stuff on YouTube, and you can see, our growth and where we are today. So you got your actors, you got your script, you're ready to shoot. Talk to me about, the first take and how the whole shoot went. And if you have any kind of stories, I'm sure you do. Talk to me a little bit about actually shooting this.
Absolute full panic on trying to get everyone to the same place at the same time with the same idea. And being like, to kind of go back really quickly to being indecisive as a director, everyone who has more experience than you, or they think they have, or they actually have more experience than myself in this case, will all have advice and opinions, and some are good and some are bad. And either you let them take over or you hold on. And I held on, but I also was willing to adjust and be patient and calm about it, and not, it's my baby and I want it this way. It had to be more, for example, getting there on set, and that first time we read through and we did the very first take where Dr. Figment introduces his patient, David Hewitt. And Tyler says, give me a second, I need to start over. What? Why do you need to start over? What's going on? I forgot the line, and I'm feeding them lines, and we're going over it and cut. And Jeff saying cut. I'm like, whoa, I'll say cut. And having the clapboard and all these things that I should have learned in film school that I didn't do because I didn't go to film school. But you can learn them in the field in real life. It's just trickier, and it's a surprise. And then we did another one and another one. And I had this idea of having a clock in the background and a old style tube TV with static playing. And I didn't think about it when I started designing the set with all the things on the table in Dr. Figment's office. And we had to keep resetting the clock because we do a take, the time would change. So then when we started the new take, we had to reset the clock. And Jeff, I don't know how many times Jeff Gonzalez reset that clock to back, because it wouldn't have matched in time, like the time. And then that gets into the editing, and we'll get into that next. But your brother editing that, I feel sorry for him, Kellen, who had to edit that. And then I re-edit it and change it. And the clock, if you look at the time on the clock, it doesn't make sense on how long the conversation goes to how long. So my advice, don't have a clock if you're going to make a short film.
Yeah, you'll see in all our stuff, we black out with gaff tape any clocks just for that reason.
Now I know why.
So go ahead.
The amount of times that we would redo it and reshoot it. And then Bronson having the idea, because it was a stationary shot, which is boring. It is. I've heard you say that. I've heard your brother, Kellen, say that. It's not interesting. You got to make it visually interesting, as well as the dialogue and story are interesting. And he had the idea of filming behind Dusty directly on Tyler, because Tyler's emotiveness and expressions and the way he was delivering his dialogue was so good. We were missing it. None of that would have been there if it wasn't for Bronson's eye for that. And that was something I was like, and then it all getting into the how to do, a blood splatter, and that I had to cut out because I didn't think to use a pump. That fortunately you guys have Tegan Crossley, who's one of the most fantastic special effects artists I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, and with a blood pump. I tried to flick it with my fingers, and you could see my fingers in the shot. And I was like, cut that out, cut, I got to cut it out.
Yeah, I think, when you kind of do these things, you number one, learn from them. But just a tip, that I've found is that I don't like tripods. I do come from the James Wan school of, shaky cam. It's not really shaky cam, it's just shoulder rig. for two reasons, and I think this is specifically tailored to indies. Number one is it adds a little bit more, just the subtle shake, and it's like not crazy shake because it's stabilized. It adds just a little bit more engagement and movement, and it's easier for me to pan and tilt and move around with the characters. You feel like you're part of our movies, and I think this is why people like found footage. You feel like you're there, and it adds a little bit of grittiness and realism. If you watch like The Conjuring and I can't remember the other James Wan movie that's super popular, but if you watch a lot of his stuff, basically, it feels like you're there, and that's because it's through like your eyes move around; they don't stay steady. The second reason I don't like tripods is they take a long time. You have to move them, and you have to set them, reset them, and do everything. When I'm there, I just can move with the rig on my shoulders. And really, I'll give you a third thing is that when you do choose to use a tripod in conjunction with the shoulder rig, you can really amplify that scene because it's like, oh wow, the camera is still here. There has to be a reason for them to be still. So you can have a really cool emotional beat, or you can have something where, it's a very calm moment. And then once it's back on the tripod, it's even more hectic. So you can kind of control the flow of the movie a little bit better. But again, it's a stylistic choice. It's whatever you want to do. You're the director, but that's just for me is I really lean on that, shoulder rig. I really like that piece of equipment. So let me ask you, Chris, my next question is how much of the script was used, how it was written when you made the movie versus how much was like, oh boy, that's not working. Let's change this.
There's very little that I didn't keep in dialogue. There are things that I cut around because they just didn't fit with what I was trying to go for, with the rhythm, with the emotion that I was trying to express through that Tyler was giving as David and as Dusty as Dr. Figment. But as far as the stationary shot, the idea was to elicit that emotional response, to get it to make you feel uncomfortable and close is kind of like in Paranormal Activity, the therapy session. Dr. Figment records his therapy sessions. And that was the idea with how I got away with and how I felt like it does work to have it stationary. But that was what inspired it. And as far as things that got cut, there's things that didn't work. So there is some of the dialogue I didn't keep in. It'll have cuts because the idea was to have it like found footage, videotape of a therapy session that someone came across on the internet. And so it's degraded because it's older. You'll see the little record thing on the top, thing that you'll do like old VHS or old camcorder footage. And then that's the idea. Dr. Figment is in his therapy session in his office recording his patients, and that's the idea why it's stationary and what I was trying to make people feel awkward and uncomfortable, claustrophobic, and kind of get the feeling I got from watching movies like that, like The Conjuring when they're doing the possession shots, and like Paranormal Activity where they're in the office and things go sideways. It makes you feel weird and awkward and uncomfortable and claustrophobic, and I like that feeling in horror movies, specifically found footage horror movies, because I was a kid when Blair Witch came out, and that scene of him standing in the corner and her in the woods, and it made you feel like you were there. Anytime in like the Conjuring movies when they're doing these possession things, or Annabelle, any of them, you feel like you're there, like you were saying, but also it makes you uncomfortable. It makes you feel like things are crawling on your skin, awkward. And I was going for that, trying to go for that, but things were lost because of it. There's a part where, it wasn't working out, and I decided later, after the initial editing that your brother Kellen graciously helped me out with all of that footage and audio on that massive amount of data. I cut around a lot of things that just weren't working anymore. So a lot of dialogue was lost because of it.
Yeah, I mean, like that's just editing. Usually the first draft of our movies is about an hour 30, hour 45 minutes. And then just for us, the sweet spot's an hour 15, hour 15, hour 20. But you'll notice some of our movies are an hour 8, hour 9, hour 10, which is fine. But the reason that they are that short is because I just had to cut a lot of stuff out that I wanted to keep. And, again, for us, where we are in our film career is, people have to turn this on and have to watch it all the way through. So anything that's kind of slow or boring, I have to cut. And a lot of it, sometimes I just don't want to cut. I really don't want to cut it because it develops the characters or it has, something that deepens the story. But at the same time, like I have to, our objective is to get our money back and make another movie. And I have to keep that going at all times. I love slow burn horror. It's my favorite genre of horror. But I can't, at my stage in my career, can't make slow burn horror. It's just not feasible for me right now. Now, if I get a bigger budget and an audience that, is more prone to, sitting through something like that, then, I'll do that eventually. But right now you have to just understand, where we're at. So, Chris, you wrapped this movie, the final take, you said cut. What were you feeling at that time?
All I was thinking about was how good it felt to finally do it. And then hearing that how common it is in indie film that people just won't upload it. They won't do it. They'll just let it sit and never show anyone, never just put it out there for people to see it, total strangers. I told my entire family about it and everyone I know to watch it once I got it done. But what really matters is total strangers coming across it and seeing it and going, man, that was something special. That was a really good story. And that's what it was for me. And at the end, mostly what I was thinking about was, now I have to edit it. All of this footage and all of the audio and all of it that goes into editing what you just made for people to see, because I had no intention of not uploading it. I knew I was going to do it, and I knew I spent too much time and energy, blood, sweat, and tears on writing it and putting it together and getting everyone together to do it. And then all I thought about, to answer your question, was, what am I going to do and how am I going to edit this?
I mean, when I still say cut and we have our wrap party for the final time, at that point I'm too exhausted to really, feel any emotion. I'm just trying to get through the day and get some sleep. And then usually the 2 days after that, I take it a little bit easy. I catch up with my other businesses and make sure everything's good. But those are the 48 hours after the shoot, I feel really good because number one, you've accomplished something. We've made another movie. Usually we learn a lot and we get a lot better, and I could see that through just our process of production and what I'm seeing through the camera visually and how, our acting is getting better. So I see the improvement at my end. And that's all great until you start looking at the footage. And I have yet to have something where I'm editing and being like, wow, this is really, really good. This is better than I imagined, because it's never better than what you imagine because it's your imagination. There's no budget. And on most Hollywood scenes, you would be able to do reshoots and do pickups and everything to get it to as close to your imagination as possible. On indie sets, we just can't go back. This is it. This is what you get. And I think that, number one, kudos to you for uploading it, because I do think that probably 80 to 90%, and this is my own guess, but I think it's very accurate, if not understated. I think 80 and 90% of indie stuff never gets uploaded or seen to anyone. And that is because of editing, because it is problem solving, because you're looking at something, especially if you're early in your career, of this awesome thing you had in your head, and then you're looking at it, and when you go to log in that computer every single day, you're just looking at your problems and your failures and things that did not match up to your imagination. And it is soul crushing. It is really soul crushing. So anyone who has uploaded anything, I give you massive props, because it is a difficult process. And anything creative is very, very difficult. Whether it's writing, whether it's editing, whether it's, making movies, or just drawing or anything creative, takes a different part of your brain than, doing spreadsheets or something similar to that. So it's like, a creative person could work 8 hours, and someone can be doing spreadsheets or emails, answering for 8 hours. The creative person is going to burn out like that. It's you can't turn your brain off and just do repetitive stuff. Every second is problem solving. How do I fix this cut? How do I do this? And it's mentally and physically draining. It's exhausting. I could really only do about 5 or 6 hours of editing each day before I'm just it can't. I have to shift gears to writing or do something else. So talk to me a little bit about the editing process going through this. What was the most difficult stuff? And maybe with some stuff that turned out better than you anticipated.
Well, I have to say, again, credit to your brother for his willingness to give me his time and his experience helping me with the very initial and then a couple other edits of Dr. Figment. If it wasn't for your brother Kellen, I never would have got it to where it is. And then I went back through it, worked with him, and then I did some more cuts on my own. And that experience with shooting with what we shot on, which was the Blackmagic camera that Santa Fe Indie Film Club provided, and with the sound and the mics and the sound mixing that Mike Barella did, putting that all together, fortunately, having that good rapport and that friendship with your brother, he was willing to give me his time and edit it together for me initially. What you eventually will see, what people will eventually see, is the most final version, recut version of that I did on my own and showed to him, showed to others. So that first cut to this newest cut is different in the way that I changed things, added things in audio, different cues, different effects that worked for me, that what I wanted to try to as closely match, like you were saying, closely match my imagination of what I saw Dr. Figment in my head to what you see on the screen.
Yeah, and I mean, kudos to my brother. My brother's a very, very good editor. He's probably better than I am, honestly. A lot of our movies you guys will see, and there's stuff where I just can't figure it out, and he's able to do it. Or there'll be times where you can do too much editing. You can literally edit things too much and chop them up, and it just overcomplicate things. And he's always been one to be like, hey man, like, what are you doing here? You're going down this rabbit hole too far. And he's had a lot of experience doing that. He's done a really, really good job editing stuff. So you had a good editor to begin with. What was the scene that gave you the most difficult? What was the hardest problem scene, in your movie that you had to fix?
Well, I don't know how much I can say or should say about the ending, because I don't want to ruin it if someone watches this before that, but hopefully they watch that and then this. But the ending was most difficult. What happens in the ending was very difficult, getting it just right. And there's interesting behind the scenes. So 2 interesting behind the scenes. First of all, for all your inspiration, DPS's inspiration, your brother's assistance, willingness to do this and help me out. But then the difficulty came of, how do I finish it? And what am I going to do? And that ending was tricky, trying to get it just right, trying to get everything just right to where people believe that it really happened. And editing that together and editing the audio in, putting it all together, that was tricky. But I learned so much. I learned so much from being on set with you. I learned so much from Dylan and from Tatum and from Andrew, everyone that was there, from your brother, from Dan, motivated by what Dan has done, what Dan Wheeler has done, and how much you inspired what he's doing now. Last Witch in Wisconsin, and the newest one, eventually, if people have an opportunity in that area at a film festival to see, A Voice in the Vessel. So inspiring. And I can't even imagine, in his interview, I'm sure he goes into it, and I'm trying to remember exactly how he went into it, but with that, what goes into, what parts are the most difficult, what you want to, how it's going to fit, and how you want other people to see. Good story, behind the scenes story. Alfred Hitchcock, his wife was his editor, and the first cut of Psycho was terrible, and the studio didn't like it, and she came in and worked it, and that's what we ended up getting, was the movie that we all know, Psycho. because of that fantastic editing. And I was fortunate enough to have that really good relationship with you, DBS, your brother, to where you guys were willing to help me out like you're willing to help me out now by giving me the opportunity to share Dr. Figment with so many more people.
Yeah, I mean, having a good editor is crucial, and just having another set of eyes on your project is super crucial. But I mean, we learn, like, we're about to shoot maybe 21, and each time I make one of these, we learn a lot. And you think we kind of have the same thing over and over again, and we learn from the stuff, but each one is just different. There's just different tricks, and there's different things to kind of work on and improve and get better at, and there's different ways to do different things. And it's crazy to me because, like, we have like 4 movies in post right now, so I'm looking at our progress from 4 movies ago to what we just shot or are about to shoot, and it's almost like night and day. And this is where, there's 2 philosophies in film. One, which is to, if you're about to make your first feature, save up all your money, save up all your resources, spend years writing this thing, and really give it your all because this is your one shot, and go make that film. Where the DBS model is, make it as good as you possibly can with the time that you have, get it done, and then make another one. Learn from that one that you made, and then make another one. And there's a lot of, I don't think either one there's no right or wrong in there, but I'll just tell you, for the industry where we're at and what we've been able to do, and for our budget, it is much better to make a lot of these things because you learn from it. The fact that a lot of people think that filmmaking isn't a skill that can be improved on doesn't make sense to me. And I think that comes from people who just haven't made movies because, like Chris says, the minute you're on there, you'll eventually see everything that you've done wrong, and you go and you fix those mistakes. My favorite phrase is, like, it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to mess up, but learn from it and don't do it again. And, a lot of our movies now we're removing things that just didn't work. And I think that is, we're getting better at things, but we're also just getting rid of the stuff that we just can't do or we didn't do very well. So, Chris, let's talk about, you have this thing uploaded, it's done. You've learned a lot from this. What is next? What's the next itch for you? What are you going to be working on next?
So there's 2 things, in fact. So my cousin Hope, I want to say hello to her and her family, my uncles and my cousin Braden. But Hope is a horror fan. She loves horror. She watched Shadows of Bigfoot and enjoyed it, seeing her cousin getting murdered by a Bigfoot. And she wants to do a horror movie. And I told her, okay, we'll try to figure out and work this. And so the idea is to, at some point after the holidays, is to film a short horror film with her as the lead. And basically the idea for that is this girl, she's a big horror fan, wishes she was in a horror movie in real life, and so it comes true, and creature out of the closet draws her in, kind of like Darkness Falls, Tooth Fairy kind of idea, pulls her into the closet, she screams. My Uncle Philip comes in as playing her father in the movie as well as real life. Comes in panicking, looking for her, can't find her. She's disappeared into the other dimension, the dark dimension of the closet. That's that idea. As far as the continuation with the main character, David, played by Tyler Nunez, already wrote a screenplay for that, met up with him, and our plan for next year is to film another story with David called David's Fall, a Night Terrors story, and continue on as a series of short films with Tyler as David, and continue with this character David and his struggle with these night terror demons. Think of them as the Cenobites from Hellraiser, these type of demons, these night terror demons that torment him. In particular, point of fact, one of your movies, Devil in the Room, similar kind of idea. That's actually an inspiration for this idea to continue on these night terrors, these horrific dreams, waking dreams that David, played by Tyler Nunez, is going through, and his struggle with that. And that's the next project that I have lined up with Tyler, with the character David that you will meet and everyone will meet in Dr. Figment.
I mean, all of that sounds really good. Keep going with the sleep stuff because I do love Devil in the Room. Um, I just think that like out of all my movies, that one personally was my worst job that I did just making that movie and writing it and directing it. I think there's a really cool concept in there. I think we bit off more than we can chew. Um, but it's always cool. Again, like sleep paralysis, sleep demons, that kind of stuff was really cool in there. I think there's a good film in there. I just think that the way we went about it was not the best. And that's just speaking from, making a whole bunch of other movies, since then. But again, that's like, it's a skill that you've learned. So, Chris, now that you've made this, Dr. Figment, it's uploaded, you're getting feedback on it. Um, what would you change knowing what you know now about that movie?
How I designed the set and that checkered blanket. The TV sequence I was going for was obviously inspired by Poltergeist and the ghosts that kind of contact Carol Ann through the television. Something about, I grew up in the 80s, so something about the static of a TV, mainly because of that movie as a child, haunted me my entire life. Even up to the sequel or the remake that came out a few years back was fantastic. Loved those movies as a kid. That really inspired me, but it was difficult because that tube TV is very heavy. And I had to put that up on a table and cover everything up and set things up behind there. So behind the TV is this old spirit medium poster photograph from the 1800s that you can't really see that well because I shot on a tripod. So you can't see it that well. And all the little pieces, I would just take it all away. It takes away from what's going on. The way I did the end sequence, I'd like to change that. I wish at some point I will redo it. The idea is to do a full feature at some point with Tyler Nunez as David in this, as this character in this Night Terrors sequence of stories, kind of like Tales of the Crypt, where they have multiple episodic adventures that this character David is going through, struggling with these demons, these sleep demons, paralysis demons, these night terrors, his particular night terrors that come in the form of lost loves, of relatives that he hurt or they hurt him, that affected his life, twisted his mind, and made him suffer and fall into this depression that caused these demons to attach to him, creating these terrors, these night terrors that he's struggling with.
Cool, man. I mean, I love all that stuff. The trauma is also really cool. I think it's very relevant to a lot of people as well. And I am also a fan of the static. I've tried to work it into a couple of movies. We haven't really done it too well, but I'm always trying to get it to work. To me, just coming downstairs and seeing the static on your TV was always terrifying as a child. It's just core memory. Um, so let's wrap up here. You did this, you made the thing, you uploaded it, which I give you massive props for. The 0.0001% who have made something, and even less of that have even uploaded it, and you were able to do it, and you're able to get feedback on it, and you learn from it. So it sounds like you're in a good spot. What advice would you give to filmmakers who are about to make their first short or feature film?
Upload it, do it. Don't hesitate. Don't get hung up on formatting. Don't get hung. That can be fixed. That can be rearranged. Share your idea. We need and want more stories. Audiences are hungry for something they haven't seen. One of my favorite directors, Quentin Tarantino, talks about that all the time, that it's important to just get those ideas out there, to share it. It's your first time, like it was my first time. You have to do it. Make yourself do it. Write that story, film that story, share that story with the world, and don't let anything stop you. Don't let your self-doubt stop you, and don't let a lack of equipment stop you. You don't have to do it with a fancy camera and an expensive budget and save and save and save and never get it done. Even at the film club, there's plenty of people that go to that film club, Santa Fe Indie Film Club, that have written amazing screenplays. I mean, fantastic screenplays, full features, but they're waiting to get it financed. 100,000, $1 million to make my movie the way I want to make it. 10 years goes by, 20 years goes by, you never make it. I wrote a full feature night terrors idea, and I can't make that. So I wrote Dr. Figment to just get it out there, get people to see it, get their opinions on it, share that story, and you can too.
I think that's spot on, Chris. I think it's really cool for me to see, number one, you coming from Shadows of Bigfoot and giving a great performance on there and really helping me to doing your own thing. I think that's really, really cool for me to see that because I am in it to make movies that I want to make, but I'm also really in it to try and get this indie movement going a little bit more. We had some momentum back when Amazon was, paying well and that kind of dropped down. But I do think that, the film market, everyone's very bearish on the film market. And it's all doom and gloom. But I actually think that the film market in the next 3 or 4 years is going to be really, really good, especially for indies. The cost of equipment, everything has come down so much that, really you just have to tell a good story. And I think that editing and storytelling are going to be the biggest things moving the next 3 or 4 years. So if you're an editor, you're in a good spot. And if you are a storyteller, if you're a creative, you're making these things, I think that, we're going to see some really, really good stories out there. And I'm really excited, for feature horror, just, feature films in general. So we're going to wrap it there. Dr. Figment is on our YouTube channel. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. I'm going to put all Chris's contact information in the show notes if you want to reach out to him for any questions, comments, or concerns, or just what you thought about his film. Feel free to do so. Please watch the Echoes of Evil trailer. It's going to be on our Instagram because it is the red band trailer, and I don't want to get banned and our ads cut from the other platforms. But it's really cool. That movie's great. And check out all our other stuff. We're headed into the new year. Next year's going to be crazy, but it's going to be a good crazy. So until next time, guys, take it easy.